Hello and welcome to our coverage from Davos. It's 2026. I'm here with my very first interview, Professor Douglas McCauley. How are you?
I'm doing great. Well, warming up to Davos, you might say.
So you're here from sunny Santa Barbara via somewhere that we're going to speak about in a moment, but heading up the Benioff Ocean Science Laboratory, UC Santa Barbara, one of my favorite places. What we're going to talk about is shipping and whales. And from what I understand, ships are the new harpoon. Not just in commercial whaling, but in fact, globalization means that shipping and the increase in shipping, all these goods that we all want, are not so good for the whales. How big is the problem?
You got it. And I bet you didn't think you were going to be talking about whales at Davos.
Not my number one conversation, but I'm open.
There is a real connection. So you put it perfectly. So globalization happening, that means that we're sending more commerce back and forth, Asia, North America, Europe, right? We're sending that on ships. Something crazy like 90% or so of our goods are carried on maritime shipping. So that's that iPad, that's our clothes, everything, right? And I grew up in a port town in Port of Los Angeles in Long Beach, which is our largest port complex in the US. So that's a good thing for local economies and jobs and communities. But for the ocean, all of that business busyness, all of that traffic does present new risks for biodiversity and specifically whales. And you said it right. Effectively, ships are kind of like our new harpoon, which just to me means that, you know, historically when we want to save the whales, we're focused on stopping whaling. But these days, there are far more whales that are actually killed in collisions, kind of like roadkill at sea between ships and whales. And that's what we've been focusing on recently.
So there are these hotspots where whales and ships are more often to be found together, and less than 7% of those are protected. What's up with that? What's up with the gap?
Well, it's not good news, right? So most of the whales that are out there on our planet are still very much at risk, but this discovery of where these hotspots were and how unprotected they are is actually brand new. So our team, along with dozens of other scientists from around the world, whale experts, first sat down and we collated all of this information about everyone's sightings over the years of where the whales were. And this is kind of remarkable, but it speaks to how much we have yet to learn about the oceans. What we produced was a map of where whales were, where the great whales, as they call them, are around the ocean. So we didn't have a map like that before. You know, it's a funny thing to say, well, how do you actually, for starters, how do you not have a map of where the biggest animal that's ever lived on the planet and some of its relatives are in the ocean? Well, we didn't have that. So we created that, and then we mapped shipping. Ships are much more easy to track and understand. We know where those are. It was discovering and understanding where the whales were, which is the hard part. But we crossed those, and that's when you see these hotspots pop out. A hotspot in Chile, a hotspot off Santa Barbara, hotspots in South Africa off China. And then
Mediterranean?
Mediterranean is a really bad hotspot. Lots of really actually unique, endemic, found nowhere else in the world whales, and a lot of ship traffic.
Okay.
So we found these hotspots, and we found, okay, actually there's not much being done in these places where are these challenges. So that's what opened up this, I guess you would say, problem or opportunity is we're losing a lot of whales in these spaces, so we need to figure out some solution to save those whales in these hotspots that we've just discovered.
So talk about slowing down. Like slowing down outside of a school seems to work for cars, would work for ships, right?
That's it. And that's one of the primary interventions. So just, you put it wonderfully. So just like when you're driving by a school, you have the sort of flashing lights when school is in session and you slow down and the kids are not perfectly safe, but they're safer. That's one of the theses here around saving whales. If you know where there's a hot spot, if you can have ships slow down, I don't mean across the entire Pacific, but these are pretty discrete areas. Whales feed here, whales are aggregating to breed over here. If we know where those spots are, we can have these ships slow down, and not all the time, because the whales aren't there all the time. Just like the schools, we only slow down during the weekday when there are kids there. If we can give the shipping companies, time is money for them, if we can give them very good, precise information, whales are there, slow down now, we think that can make a really big difference in saving whales.
So talk a little about the sensors that you're developing and how those help the shipping companies know when to slow down.
Well, it's Davos. We have to talk about tech and,
Okay.
and AI.
Right.
And
we can't have any conversation without artificial intelligence.
We'll get that box checked.
Right.
But there is actually a really useful intersection of AI in this. And so what we use is kind of like so we use a handful of kind of tech combo platter, I guess you would say. One of those is an AI-powered hydrophone that is constantly listening in the oceans, and then it can automatically detect, oh, that's a blue whale, that's a humpback whale, that's a fin whale. It's sort of like Siri, but underwater. It automatically recognizes these whales. And then that transmits a signal up by satellite and tells us when these whales are present. We also have what we call a weather forecast for whales, but it's a little bit like a weather forecast. We use data from satellites that are sensing the oceans and then using predictive models, forecasts of when whales will be present. Then we use one of the world's great sensors, which is sometimes forgotten here, which is us. We have whale humans, or humans that love whales on the water that are experts, and they send information via an app to us. We put all that together, and then we create a risk rating. Like I was just checking before we stepped out here. Yeah, the risk rating in Santa Barbara is very high. Off San Francisco, where we have this tech stack together too, it's moderate. So then you get this information, you send it to shipping companies, and you can give information. Maybe the ships in San Francisco, for example, don't need to slow down right now in San Francisco, but they do in Santa Barbara.
Okay, interesting. What about thermal sensors as well? Because whales are warm, right?
You're reading my mind. So just like see my breath,
right.
a hot breath in a cold environment, you can use a thermal camera to see whales in the oceans. So they're warm-blooded, just like us, like you said. So you get the spout, that iconic whale spout. It's a stinky breath, by the way.
Okay,
if you've ever smelled a whale, they smell kind of like they smell like fish.
Right.
I think it's also, it's remarkable to breathe in air that a whale has breathed out, but it's also stinky.
Right.
But it's warm. To the point of our conversation, it's warm. So it stands out like a sore thumb in a cold environment. In a cold ocean, you see this hot spout. So we're just developing a system, which I can talk about next year, that we're going to put in place in a couple months that uses thermal. And we were just in London at a meeting at the International Maritime Organization talking about all different kinds of tech, and thermal surfaced is a really promising new tech that some groups around the world are using successfully.
So talk about the International Maritime Authority and how they can be involved in, because it's great to have the technology, you also need the regulation to help implement this and make companies use it, right?
We are catching on a high moment because we did just come from the IMO, International Maritime Organization, and we co-convened with the International Whaling Commission. So you had a little bit of alphabet soup there in London. But these are the folks that really have the power, the global mandate, to sit down and say, okay, hotspot, we now know that's a problem. We need a solution. Those are the folks that actually have the remit, the power to come through and make change. That could be slowing down like we talked about. The IMO also have the power to say, well, how about if we just bend the shipping lane a little bit around the whales? That's often a solution. And the International Whaling Commission can help put together, a good sense of what technologies are most promising, which ones maybe, look good but don't help, and then help create some momentum around funding to get these things to scale. So we had all the right and we had folks from all of these places, from Peru and South Africa, from the Mediterranean, from around the world together in London. So that gap that we talked about, we're heading in a direction to start filling it and to start solving the problem out there in the ocean.
Okay, so I get why you were in London, but what's a whale biologist doing in Davos? How could Davos help? Why does it matter?
Good question, fair question. I thought there was going to be a whale convening. Crypto whales. That was my bad dad joke. But it turns out there were crypto whales and not whales.
Right.
No, honestly, Edie, the folks that we need to have come together to solve this problem are here. So I need to talk to some of the major shipping companies. There are a few of those folks that are here that are moving all of these goods around. I need to talk to their customers. I mean, that's like the Amazons in the US, the Walmarts that are moving all these goods back and forth. Actually, the interface between shipping companies and customers. So I get to share, hey, there's an opportunity for you to actually do something for whales. Maybe you didn't know that there were whales being harpooned in your supply chain by your ships, right? And they don't want that, right? There are also technologists here that are incubating, not so much for spotting whales, but doing other things that we can borrow and get inspiration from. And then there are the global leaders that, the leaders of these different countries that can say, okay, we want to do our part from the policy to create intervention to save the whales. So I basically have, you wouldn't think it, but here in freezing cold Davos, we have all of the players that we need in the same space at the same time to figure out this solution for whales.
And that's why Davos still matters.
It does.
All right.
I'm excited to be here.
All right, Professor McCauley, thank you so much for stopping by the new Hub Culture, whatever this is, studio, Penthouse Studio. I hope you liked it.
We did. Thank you, Edie.
Thank you very
Thanks for
much.
having me.